Okay.
It's going to be more.
Thank you very much. You can call the next panel.
Paul Cavanaugh, representing California Teachers Association. Jai Sukprasert, representing California School Employees Association.
Good to see you. Okay. Very good to see you. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your patience. And the record is open to receive all the written testimony, and we certainly would like to hear your perspective on this very important topic.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Paul Cavanaugh. I'm in my 22nd year of teaching at King City High School. I've been involved in virtually every aspect of that school. I ran the Mexican American Youth Association for 10 years. I've coached 20 seasons of sports, including soccer, cross country, and track. I'm the advanced placement teacher in U.S. history, and I'm a member of that community. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that many of our teachers are also community members and parents, as many of our teachers are. I want to briefly respond to one thing that Dr. Bernard said about teacher salaries at King City when he got in. And yes, we had a high salary schedule, but for many years our salary was tied to a formula in which the teachers received 43% of the total budget, regardless of what it was. So when the district got 0% COLA, we took 0. When the district got 3%, we got 3%. The year before Dr. Bernard got here, the Ed Data put out, I believe this is Ed Data, where they assess your teacher salaries compared to other high school districts. King City High School was at 107% of the average. We were slightly over that. Immediately upon Dr. Bernard coming in, I did not negotiate this because I was not president at the time. We took a 9.6% salary cut and had our health benefits capped, saving the district $2 million plus ongoing. And we did that after a very brief negotiation session. We took our medicine. I'm not here to complain about lowered salaries or capped benefits. I'm here to describe the diminishing of the quality of education in our district, which also has fiscal and financial ramifications. It starts with the community. And you heard from one of our board members, Mr. Rodriguez, and I certainly respect his experiences. But let me read you just very briefly a couple of quick sentences from another board member who attended King City High School back in the day, graduated, long roots in the community. His father was a board member way back in the day. He describes this sort of interaction with our state administrator. He said, I then inquired as to the needs of the students, whose test scores were already proficient or advanced. Did he care about them? His response was revealing. That is not my concern, He further stated that he didn't even want to be here. In his words, why would I want to come to King City? I have his permission to use this. He provided this to our state administrator, so this should come as no surprise. I have letters here from the Knights of Columbus, the Lions Club, a community group known as Young Farmers that's made up of some of the biggest growers in our area, from a consortium of groups that have used our King City High School auditorium, all expressing their concerns with Dr. Bernard.
Okay.
Mr. Alejo alluded to the meeting last Friday. How is that connected to our current situation? Our parents are voting with their feet. They are leaving our high school district. I am sympathetic to these districts where they have declining enrollment. But in our district, the declining enrollment is has been artificially put in place by the fact that Dr. Bernard has cut a lot of the programs that our locals want to have. And he has not saved money by doing that. In fact, it has cost our district money. We have lost, by our estimate, anywhere from $100,000 to $189,000 net on ROP monies because he cut computer classes. We had one of the finest computer programs in the county. Over 20 sections of computers. He came in last year, cut it down to 5. I don't know how you justify that in the year 2011. The number has gone back up to 7. We had ag classes that were fine ag classes. We're an agricultural community. That's what we do. And he ripped those programs. So our kids are fleeing. And it's creating a problem. Dr. Bernard addressed this in our in-service. And he talked about the declining enrollment. And he attributed it to the natural increase and decrease. That, frankly, is simply not true. I had distributed to you the enrollments for our feeder schools. FCMAT made projections, not only on our high school district, but also on our feeder schools. And if you look there, FCMAT was spot on, for the most part, for their projections for our feeder schools. They were either spot on or low. If you'll note, on our high school district, we're down 8% over what FCMAT projected. So one might say, well, FCMAT just doesn't make good projections. They made good projections on our feeder schools. And these numbers support what those of us who are embedded in the community know anecdotally. Parents telling us, we're pulling our kids and we're sending them to other districts. We're homeschooling our kids. We're going to private school. Sir, if I may, and I appreciate the time and I know you're in a hurry. Anecdotally, we have a military base in our district called Fort Hunter Liggett. It's expanding significantly. I know I live out in that area very close to it. 3 years ago, the commanding officer of the entire base sent his children to our school. His son was in my advanced placement U.S. history class with a goal of getting into the West Point Academy. He made it. We prepared him. His senior year, he had to transfer to Virginia because his father was transferred. Okay? I just got off the phone yesterday. So we had a commanding officer, top-level military man, willing to send his kids to our school. I got off the phone yesterday with a military wife. They are now organizing at Fort Hunter Liggett to send transportation and send their kids to Paso Robles High School nearly an hour away. Rather than send them 20 miles down the road to King City High School, we have always had those Army kids here. Our problem is declining enrollment. 160 kids down from the FCMAT projection, that's $1 million a year. And it is directly tied to Dr. Bernard's relationship with the community and the cutting of classes. Those things are what are killing our district. He was sent here to solve a fiscal problem. Our test scores had been going up for 6 years at King City High School, and you can see we are the only high school in the county, his first year here, and it was his first year, but he had not yet changed any of our programs. We still had all of our electives. We were the only high school in the county ranked a 9 when compared to other schools. We were not a failed academic school, but we're on our way to being one if he continues this and the declining enrollment that goes with it.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your passion. We appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you get an A.
Well, I'll try my best to follow that, Mr. Chairman and members. Jai Suk Prasid with the California School Employees Association. As you know, we represent nearly over 210,000 classified school employees in our public schools. They're the secretaries, the paraprofessionals, food service workers, safety officers, all the folks who make sure that our school operates and run in a manner that we provide a safe, clean learning environment so that our students can succeed. Interestingly, I feel like I've come in full circle on this issue because I was here with then Assemblywoman Delane Easton, who then became the state superintendent when AB 1200 was first put together. And I watched this process closely when I went with her to the Department of Education because at the time the department then got involved in the Compton School District, and that was a very, I think, a tough process. As the chairman knows well, now in Oakland, we also went through that, Coachella. As you go down the list, school takeover is just a tough process, to put it mildly, for communities. It's not just about getting a loan to keep going, but when you discover that you're unable to make decisions so that the community can stay together, it makes it all the much harder. I know the time is short, so I'll cut to the chase. I don't know how you would mandate or ask state administrators or trustees to come in and work with the community and work with the employee groups. For us, we've actually collected 5 different areas, got input from our field, and in one of the 5, they said, the county oversight process is actually a good one to provide those flags and provide a way in which the employees can also be notified of whether something is going wrong or not, because it's not in our interest to go through this process and be sort of ripped apart. As you know, education is largely a labor-intensive industry, and so costs related to teachers and classified will come into play at some point. And so you set up a kind of process already. And again, I want to coin this within the framework that this is with the 8 of districts out of 1,000, right? So I don't want, I don't want to paint this as if of every district you have this kind of problem, but wherever you don't have a good labor and management situation, it's a real problem, particularly when you have a financial situation that's exacerbated by the whole thing. As has been indicated by the previous speaker, for us too in King City, it's been a terrible situation. We feel like for our members, they feel like they're being undermined at every step, and that collective bargaining rights are being set aside. And we're making every effort that we can to try to sit down and talk and work this through. But that it's gotten so bad that our members at the local level, I think, if they were here, would be voicing the same kinds of concerns. And so, when I look back onto the different ed code sections for this forum, there's only one area that talks about how the state administrator, when they come in, have to sit down and on a monthly basis try to consider the information from various groups, including the employee groups. I don't know how you would strengthen that, but if you don't have good communication in the other 4 districts that we have information back on, in every case, because you have a state administrator coming in, a new level of bureaucracy is being created. The employee groups oftentimes do not know how to communicate with that group. Then how do you make hard decisions about scaling things back or thinking long terms? So we do think you should look at that code section, and I have it here. It's 41326.1, and maybe strengthening that somewhere where somehow you require more interaction, more of a, I'm also president of my school site council for my child right now, and I'm noticing how that's at least a form in which you force the principal and teachers and classified and parents to kind of sit down and look at some of the budget funds, and you have to have that kind of a process. Otherwise, you do have, just some real potential problems of unfair labor practice being filed. We've had all those situations, whether it's in Oakland to Vallejo, and it seems like you have to go down that route to get attention to have the employee groups listen. And so we would encourage you to, collective bargaining is the way to go. I mean, our employers, I know classified and teachers are interested in making sure that our kids are well served and that the school does not go bankrupt, because you can hear about all these problems. But we have to be at the table so that we can understand what those numbers are and be treated with respect in such a way that we help solve the problem instead of being told, you are going to do this, we're going to cut this out. Or, you have a situation where classified positions are being rewritten all over the place just so that, you have the same folks doing the same work, but now they're on probation. You have those kinds of situations that I don't think help resolve the situation at all. So we would encourage you to look at least at that ed code section and then try to strengthen it somehow, require a more collaborative effort, a more ongoing communication so that you don't have a situation where a trustee never meets with the community. I mean, how can that happen? And that just, foster all the headaches that you have.
Okay. We will certainly look at that, and we will also, we made a note to look at the possibility of a field hearing around King. To have an even more in-depth discussion on these issues. So we very much appreciate the testimony, and we would call our next panel.
Thank you.
Forward.
Appreciate the opportunity.
And, yeah.
Just in the meantime, when the other panelists are coming up, I just wanted to comment that because also the administrators are brought in for mostly for fiscal reasons, but they're given a wide range to almost touch every aspect of a school district. And King's, of course, a small community, from our Dr. Bernard came in, started focusing on changing school names, school district names. You get into other areas that are very sensitive, and instead of engaging the community in a process like they would with the school board, when it's imposed, it really exacerbates these feelings. So certainly it's caused a problem to that. We got parents that are fleeing, and those that are able to flee are those that have the financial ability to do that. Low-income families can't send their kids to other schools. They're having to deal with that, but those that have the means are moving out, and I met some of those last week.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah, we're going to call up our other witnesses too, so that they're here. Would you call the names, please?
Deborah Brown, California School Boards Administration. Dennis Myers, California Associated School Business Officials. Patty Scripter, California State PTA. Betty Olson-Jones, Oakland Education Association.
Yes, can I ask you to come forward, please? Yes, yes, please. Would you like to start?
Good afternoon. I'll go ahead and get started. Deborah Brown with the California School Boards Association. Thank you for including us in this panel, and also for including so many of our members who have been through these experiences, and listening to them and the insights that they can provide and how we can improve the system. I think that given that we are 20 years into this, that it is a good time to evaluate it, that we have enough districts to learn from the experiences. There's been some changes and some tweakings to the system, and I think that the time is good to make changes so that we can help ensure that those 11 districts that are on the cusp now, 11 to 13 districts, and also those that may be off the radar a little bit now, that we ensure that maybe we can prevent them going into needing to come to the state for a loan, and also for those that ultimately do, that we do provide a better process. Much of what I want to say, I think, has already been raised, which is so I'll just make a few points to sort of emphasize that, which is that reviewing early interventions and trying to strengthen them. This is important given actions that recently sort of weakened the oversight that was provided, that we need to maintain the oversight before we have to come to the state. Those are the local oversights with the county office. And also the issue of the loan repayment and how we finance that. I certainly understand the position that the state is in, but that this punishment that it seems like for districts seems wrong. The high interest rates seem challenging, particularly when you want to ensure a system of repayment and correction so that it doesn't happen again, but not punish students 20 years into the future, and also tying the hands of board members to make the improvements that they want to do to ensure that they remain fiscally solvent 10, 15 years after they've got a loan while they're still in repayment, and then be able to help ensure student achievement by utilizing resources that go to students, not that go to investors. Also, it's important to have a clear understanding of the role of the board in the process. I think that goes probably along the lines of engagement of teachers and other employees. Ensure that there are open lines of communication. That seems to be a common thread throughout the testimony today. So I would think we would want to look at ways that would strengthen that. And also changing some of the requirements and restrictions on districts' ability to make changes and reductions in their budget. This should be something that we might want to look at in terms of when a district is experiencing some financial distress. And then and also more public input into the process. So this is something that was mentioned before, so that as an administrator is coming in and they're making decisions, that those are happening in full view of the public. And I think that this will help ensure buy-in, engagement from the community, and then also accountability for the administrator. I think it was noted that we want to make sure that when an administrator leaves, that the district is in better shape when they came in. And so this is one way I think that we can get there. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Hi, Dennis Myers, California Association of School Business Officials. Also, thank you for allowing us to speak here. Yep. Before getting into kind of the details of what we think might ways that you can improve the actual takeover process, you've heard from others about AB 1200 and the early warning process, and as we look at the last 20 years, we look at really the successes of what AB 1200 has put into place. And as we've heard, there's 8 examples of where the districts have come to the state for emergency apportionment. We look at the thousands of budgets that have been adopted during that time. For 20 years, there's 1,000 school districts and county offices. There's 20,000 opportunities to get it wrong, and we have 8 examples. So that tells you, yes, those are very serious situations, but the process has been working. That early warning system of notification, the involvement that goes on between the County Office of Education and their school districts, between the state and their county offices. There's a lot that you don't see that is going on right now as we're talking. A lot of the work that goes on, the heavy lifting to make sure that school districts are making the right budgeting decisions and getting things in order is going on and working. We would just ask you to approach that system very cautiously, because that's something that's been very successful so far. And then to kind of get into just some of the issues that you asked about, not to repeat what's already been said. Obviously, the iBank issue, very expensive process, very costly. One thing I don't know that was mentioned is that with King City, because the investors require it, they can't pay that 20-year loan off within before 10 years. Again, if you put the right systems in place, and King City's example is extreme because that interest rate and the payment is so high, it's unlikely they're going to be able to pay off within 10 years. But if you could do that, why not be able to put those resources in and get out of debt? But in that example, it almost is like credit card debt. It's very, very hard to dig yourself out. Sure. So again, we'd like a way to look back at how the state finances that, to maybe participate more in the issuing of that loan and maybe backing that loan to get the state's rate as opposed to going out on the open market. Secondly, we heard from the controller about the beauties of their audits. We actually think that the controller's audit in this process is redundant and expensive. There is the annual audit that is already required of every school district in the state, and that process doesn't change when a district has an administrator and when they've gotten a loan. Again, it's very redundant. They're looking at the same processes and things that are going on in the district as the controller does. And you've also got the administrator, the trustee, FCMAT advising the district as well. So we think if there's something that you can do to maybe save districts money that are in this process, that may be a place that you might want to look as well. And again, it's not taking away any accountability. It's just making the process seem a little more streamlined and saving the money. And looking at the role of the administrator when you actually have a loan, we actually think that position of a state administrator might have too much power in one single person. We've heard about some of the examples here. I don't want to get into the specific examples, but from our members' perspective, we think that you could maybe just require a little more sunshine, a little more openness and transparency into that position, require more meetings with the public. Things like that would build more trust not only in the staff but also in the community and with the governing board as well. And then also with the state administrator, there's every state administrator has been coming from the curriculum side of education, which is you need. I mean, we heard from King City. There's an example there of the curriculum issues that were in place and things not happening there. But there also is just as important, you need to have a fiscal person. And it's probably impossible to find one person who is both a curriculum and a fiscal expert. It almost begs the question that maybe that you would have to put two people in place when you're talking about just that initial role of the state administrator, because there's so much going on financially that you really do need a financial expert. Either they're the same amount of authority or the fiscal person reports to the administrator. Indiana has each one appointed, and then those two appoint the third person, so Indiana actually has three people come in. But something needs to be done there, I think, to build more trust into the system. And then lastly, just with the role of the trustee. As you know, the trustee comes in after the administrator. Administrator is a czar, has total power over the governing board and over everything that goes on in the district. The trustee has stay and rescind power. We think that the life of the trustee doesn't need to equal the life of the loan. There are loans that are paid off early, but there are also loans that are not going to be paid off. But the district makes significant gains towards fiscal solvency. They put the right processes in place, and there doesn't need to be a trustee there. There's enough activity going on with the county office, with FCMAT, that at some point before that loan is paid off, the district can be given their authority back, and the trustee doesn't need to be there. And my comments are coming from folks that are serving as trustees and administrators, and folks that have been inside districts that have had these loans, and they've worked under these people. And so that's the perspective. And we want to come alongside with you and continue working with you on these. My members are eager to help you with that, and so are we. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. We're coming to the end here. We are also planning a number of field hearings. One will be in Oakland, and a number of other communities. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to we're going to be wrapping up, and my members of the committee are being called to Democratic caucus. Sure. So as people leave, and Republican caucus. Yeah, and I was going to say Republican caucus. You have better food over there.
That's an easy way to get to 2/3.
And also, I just wanted to let you know, if you see members leaving, they're leaving because of that. And so, Madam President, would you?
Do you want me to go or Patty?
Yes.
Do you want to start, Patty?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Patty, do you want to?
I'm Patty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Patty Scripter with the California State PTA. We appreciate being invited to be here. There's been a lot of really technical information here. The information from parents isn't quite so technical. I found it really interesting when I was doing some research and I looked at the FCMAC predictors of school agencies needing intervention. And if you look at item number 11, related issues of concern, item C, D, and E, staff, parent, and student exodus from the school district, public support for public schools decreasing, and inadequate community participation and communication. To me, those aren't just indicators of fiscal crisis. That's management crisis. And we heard that sort of throughout all of the testimony, that parents were used to hearing about academic accountability, school test scores. We're really not used to. We're even used to hearing about budget cuts and loss of programs. What we're really not used to hearing is that the district's on a financial crisis. It's teetering. It might go over the edge. It's really unsettling. It creates a lot of anxiety. But the bottom line for parents, what they really want to know is, what does it mean for the kids? What does it mean for my child, my child's class, my school? How is this going to impact the classes, the programs, and the services that my child needs, that our kids need? And so there is a crisis of confidence. And for some people, as you've heard, that means that parents will be leaving the district. But we think that there is a better way, and that is to have a more inclusive process for parents. In PTA, we sort of school our parents to go through the chain of command in the process, to go to the teacher, the principal, the superintendent, the school board. And part of the problem with this is that chain of command is no longer there. Parents don't really know where to go for information. They don't have that same connection to the person who's in charge. If there's a trustee, how is the trustee selected? What's their background? How are they going to get information from the community? We've sort of heard different stories about how that works. Sometimes it works out better than others. But there really needs to be more of a process there that really makes sure that the trustee is going to include the community. It's right here on the list of areas of concern. So it's really critical that there's a process that includes parents and community members. So we really need to, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. I made a lot of notes throughout the hearing, and I'm trying to be more brief.
The record's open, so you can be able to submit what you like.
So we really think that there has to be regular communication. There has to be an inclusive process. That parents have to have access to information, because this type of crisis really impacts fundamentally the kind of education that children are going to receive. And we think it's really important that the information be straightforward, unbiased, and not, as we so often do, couched in educational terms, because it needs to be accessible information for parents and community members, especially in communities where there are language issues, language barriers. Parents want to be involved. They want to make informed decisions, but you have to take the time to school them. And when you're in a crisis, sometimes that's not your first initiative. But you really have to, even with limited resources, commit the resources to educate the parents and to bring them along. Because otherwise, they're going to exacerbate the issue when they vote with their feet and leave, when they don't send their kids to school, and when there are ongoing issues with the lack of education that the kids are receiving. We also think it's really important, even though it may create some angst, is that parents really need to understand the depth of the problem. That this is a crisis, that it's cash flow, do some budget schooling so that they understand, and that in some communities, the initial reaction of the parents is, what can we do? And parents need to understand this is not the time for a bake sale. This is much bigger. It's ongoing, and that they need to be involved in advocacy for their kids. We're also concerned that because of the issue of resources, that we're concerned as more and more districts become on the brink of receivership, and we've heard that maybe there should be two tracks for those who've had lack of oversight and those that it's sort of state initiated. But we're concerned about the growing divide among districts who can pass parcel taxes, who can create community foundations, whose parents can write checks, and those whose communities can't. And so we think it's really critical that in the process that parents are included with real information and real decision making so that they really can understand the depth of the issue. And back to the bigger problem, sort of to wrap up, we really need to recognize the cost for our children. And we need to remind all of our elected officials, whether on the school board, the city council, or the legislature, that meeting the needs of children is the responsibility of all of us, and that means investing in children. So again, really hope to push for really meaningful parent involvement, not just in a list of indicators, but really inclusiveness, so that they can understand that there are difficult choices and that they're part of the process. You know, when you have a fiscal crisis, you can't do everything you used to do. We keep trying, and we've done pretty well, but you can't do that anymore. And so really, truly involving parents and community members are going to have them understand the difficult choices that have to be made.
Well, thank you. And as we take the committee in some of these communities, we help us make sure parents participate. And last panelist, Betty Olson-Jones, President, Oakland Education Association.
Thank you, and I want to appreciate your enduring support for Oakland Unified School District, and especially with AB 609, and we hope it will come out of the Appropriations Committee and be voted upon. I also want to appreciate your consistent talk about values, and that's the real issue. We know we face a fiscal crisis, and we have to continually go back to the issue that's really at hand, and that is, what do we value in a society, and are we willing to pay for it? I was not president during the time of the state takeover. I have never supported it. I'm a 31-year Oakland resident, a 12-year teacher, and 5 years as president of the association. Our position is that the state takeover was never designed to simply fix the financial troubles of the district. If that had been the case, we wouldn't be looking at now $6 million in payments every year to fix issues where the state audits now say that there were problems. Our position is that this was a move to engage in so-called education reform with Oakland Unified School District as the experiment without going through a democratic process. So I look at local control as something that's really sacred. In a democracy, public education is something that is foremost. And when you bring somebody in from the outside to deal with that, you take away the voice of the public. That happened by giving the state administrator full responsibility over contracts, over collective bargaining, over curriculum and operations. The issue of fiscal solvency didn't even come up for a few years. Randy Ward, as state administrator, didn't present, as Gary testified earlier, didn't present a fiscal recovery plan for 3 years. But he wasted very little time in attempting to turn 14 schools in the flatlands of Oakland over to charters. That happened within 5 months. So the real purpose at hand was quite clear to the community and to the Oakland Education Association. We managed to stop that move. Only 2 were converted to charters. But then began the real process of working at dividing the district into many small schools. And in the period of the state takeover, of the schools that were there in the beginning, 46, or over half, of those schools were either closed, turned into charters, reconstituted, or otherwise destabilized. So our view is that this really is part of a corporate agenda. You destabilize a community, you drive parents out, you turn schools to charters in the name of reform, you starve them of resources and deprive them of their civil rights, and you push a one-size-fits-all curriculum. The fact that all 3 state administrators were graduates of the Broad Foundation speaks to that. The Broad Foundation is openly pro-charter, openly anti-union, openly interested in privatization of public schools, and I think we need to really look at that. In the first year as state administrator, Randolph Ward fired 40% of custodians, eliminated libraries and librarians for nearly all middle schools and several high schools. In 2006, teachers were forced to take a 6% pay cut. He instituted so-called results-based budgeting, which supposedly grants decision-making powers to individual sites. But in reality, by turning over all monies to each site, it puts in a declining enrollment district, and in a time of fiscal emergency, it pits new against veteran teachers. So we have a situation where principals are always looking for ways to cut cost, so they don't want veteran teachers, they can't afford counselors. Now our largest high school has no more counselors. This has been the result directly of 6 years of state administration. And finally, in 2006, the district attempted, under Randolph Ward, to sell off the district administration building. Acres and acres of very prime land that developers knew was going to become only more valuable in the future. This, too, was stopped by a tremendous outcry from the union and from the community. My final remark is the real issue here, and I think everybody understands that, is adequate funding. Without adequate funding, we're going to continue to see districts that are under in fiscal distress, and to then put in state administrators to then batter them further and put millions of dollars onto the backs of children in the community to have to pay off is obscenity at best. So I think we have to move away from that. We have to push for teacher-driven reform, community-driven reform, and move away from the state coming in, taking over where they really don't know what they're doing, frankly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank the panel. We have now we have a few people that have indicated they wanted public comment, and so I would have them just line up to that mic there. And we'll give you 1 minute as we try to wrap up here, and also leave the record open for you to submit other testimony. But we'd ask you for your 1 minute.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, my name is Michael Ricketts. I'm here on behalf of the Monterey County Superintendent of Schools. Wanted just to speak to one issue you've heard about several times already, and that is specifically for the King City School District, the cost of this loan that they have. There's two issues here. One is specific to that district. They're paying an interest cost each year, an amount for a loan that's $13 million or so. That's almost equal to the amount that Oakland pays for a $100 million loan. So not to say that either one is in good shape because of that, but it's really an onerous burden for the district. And we see that that's something that needs to be fixed. I know Assemblymember Alejo has been very involved in looking at that issue, and we're hoping for legislation this next year that will at least reduce the interest costs to that district. There's a larger issue here related to the I-Bank. You've already heard about that. It's really an inappropriate way to fund emergency loans to schools. The particular loan that King City has, not only can they not pay it off early, they actually start paying interest the minute that that loan is made. Previous loans that have been made to school districts were lines of credit. You could draw down the money as you needed it. You didn't pay interest until you actually needed those funds. For these loans, they start paying interest the day that loan is made, and they will pay it up until the day it has to be paid off. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Jim Mordecai from Oakland. I'm a retired teacher, and one of the things that I want everybody to remember is that these are not schools paying off. This is ADA. These are children's programs they're paying off, and it should be somehow manipulated so it's paid off across the state, that no one child has to take a lesser program because of something that the adults did. The appeal process has been mentioned repeatedly. I tried appealing, and there is an appeal process you fill out when something's violated. But it went right to the, eventually I went through all the levels. It went to the superintendent's office, the state superintendent's office. So that can't be, you can't have an appeal process that takes you in a circle and you're right back where you started from when there's a state takeover. You have to pay attention to that. And the final thing is charter schools. That whole thing about almost 3,000 students being turned over to an assistant superintendent on leave because of federal law and trying to manipulate that, it's outrageous. But if you look at this is the audit, one of the audit reports, and it talks about the lack of oversight, and then I'm going to leave you one document which says that there is weak oversight in charter schools. Recommends, this is from this is California, anyhow, state auditor. So this is way back in 2002, but this needs to be updated because there still isn't the oversight. Because I looked at the most recent one, and there's not the oversight of the federal money, but there's not capacity, and there's even less capacity with all the physical pressure. You have to face up to what that person does, and I can't understand why curriculum is involved. If you're in a physical type of thing, why isn't this person trained? And Randy Ward said, "I'm not a bean counter." He wasn't a bean counter. He should have been. Okay.
Thank you so much. Right here.
Thank
you so much, and thank you for attending the previous hearings. Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairperson and members. My name is Martha Zaragoza Diaz, and I'm representing the California Association for Bilingual Education and Californians Together. And as you know, I advocate on behalf of students who are English learners, and we work very closely with their parents. So the comments that I'm making today are based from my experience working with parents in 2 districts in which there has been a trustee placed. In those districts, there were bilingual programs. In one district, the trustee went in and just eliminated the bilingual program from one day to the next. In the other district, the trustee eliminated the bilingual program with really no information provided to parents or teachers as to why that was done. It was very clear to us, very clear to the parents, that the trustee was not informed, nor did he or she comply with the legal requirements with regards to alternative programs. So that really needs to be trustees really need to understand that they need to know what the law is, and they need to comply with the law, especially with regards to special education students and also with students who are English learners. There needs to be clarity with regards to accountability of the trustee. In one of the districts, the trustee's contract was established by the State Board of Education. However, through this process of working with the parents, it was apparent that the State Board of Education felt they could not, that they had minimum, not minimum responsibility, but they could do little with regards to accountability of the trustee. The law should be amended to at least ask the trustee to come in and report to the State Board of Education, if not annually, at least twice a year, with regards to what's happening in the district that they're responsible for as a trustee. And there should be an evaluation of the trustee in terms of how well he or she is doing with the plan that they're supposed to establish for that district. The next point is there needs to be clarity with regards to what role does the community and parents have in program decisions made by the trustee. Even though the trustee in one district developed a survey and asked for community input in the survey, very little attention was given to what the parents were recommending. Parents did not know who do they go to with regards to the recommendations. They couldn't go to the school board. They went to the trustee, but they weren't being heard. So that's another issue. My last comment deals with the fact that you need to take a look at the salaries being paid to trustees, as well as salaries being paid to the district assistance intervention teams and the school assistance intervention teams, to see if they're really doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, and whether they are actually providing the advice that they're supposed to be doing, and whether there's actually been any change with regards to the academic performance in the district. Thank you. I will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Mel Sanders. I am a past board member of the formerly West Fresno Elementary School District, which in July was dissolved into another district. And I'm sorry I didn't get the invitation in time to be a part of the committee to talk about the how it affects the school district that has been under receivership. But I will, I appreciate to have the chance to do that. But 2 things, I agree with basically everything they said, but 2 things I think should be stated is that one has to do with training for the board members. I think that's very important when you talk about, giving power back. But I think it's important that, the kind of training that they get is, adequate for the students that they serve. And one of the things, I'm also a member of the Coalition of California Black School Board Members, and we're working with the CSBA to make the training that board members get from them more effective from that perspective, to make sure that, you have 70% of the students in the state are kids of color, yet most of the school board members of the state are not. So they make the decisions that needs to be important, that the kind of training that they get is effective for them. And the other thing is that you have to have, I think, when you put the legislation together, it has to be language that's there. Well, you have to understand whether or not it's there just to help the school district, or is it there with the intention to dissolve the district. And when in 2002, 2003, I stated before the Senate Education Committee that I didn't think this district was ever going to come back. And true enough, 2011, it didn't. So I think that's very important that you're not just using this as a tool to dissolve districts. If you're really intending to help, do it in the purpose that it was intended. Thank you
very much. Well, first of all, let me just thank everyone. And I would ask for some brief reflections if members want to share with them. Senator Brownlee, I thought this was a great hearing, a great beginning of the subcommittee's work. We plan to look at every detail of testimony that was presented. There were some emergency cases that were presented, but I would appreciate very much any reflections.
Well, I would just say I thought it was an extraordinary hearing, and I think it really highlights and underscores that there are a lot of issues that do need to be drilled down further. And I think that all of the people that came and testified, whether they were board members, whether they were parts of the unions, whatever, were all extremely knowledgeable, clearly care, and it reassures me that if the appropriate communications and collaboration are taking place, that is really, a big part of the solution. And so anyway, I think that we've got a lot to look into, and I really appreciate your leadership on this, Mr. Swanson. It's an important issue. And for someone who was a school board member for 12 years and now a legislator, and I have never really dealt with this kind of issue at a district level. So it's just been very interesting, very engaging, and look forward to your continued hearings and participating.
Thank you. Senator Leo.
Yeah, same here, Mr. Chairman. This was an excellent hearing. A lot of great points raised here, a lot of lessons to be learned, and good ideas that were brought forward to improve the process legally, fiscally, and for the local communities as well. And so I look forward to and participating in perhaps a package of bills that could help improve the process statewide. You had people here from all over the state, but perhaps also in a future hearing that the academic performance takeovers be included as part of the kind of jurisdiction of this committee, because there's only 2 of them, and from my understanding on that key point, there's no a law that even allowed it, but yet it happened by the State Board of Education. There's nothing in statute that allows us takeover for academic performance reasons, and on top of that, there's no oversight. There's nothing laid out in code about what's that. So I want to work with you on carrying some bill to lay out what should be in code regarding the academic performance takeovers as well, and certainly something to look at as part of this hearing, these future hearings as of this committee.
There may be some matters that we refer to the policy committees to address that I think gives it the full weight, of the assembly.
Absolutely, but I'll be looking forward to working on legislation with all of you, if you're interested, to address that major gap in state law.
Somebody, member.
Just very quickly, thank you to all who participated today. Coming from a very privileged district like Davis Joint Unified, where the community consistently passes local measures to support education. I think it is really important to examine the widening gap between low wealth districts and districts who are able and willing to tax themselves to support education. I'm sorry that our Republican colleague is not with us at this moment, but it's going to take all of California to place education, which is already certainly a significant portion of our budget, but perhaps is not at the highest priority that it should be. So I look forward to continuing, and I certainly learned a lot today. I very much appreciate your leadership and testimony from all.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the members of the Select Committee for their patience, even though we're probably all in big trouble with the Democratic caucus. but let me just say that this was an extraordinary hearing, and I appreciate all of you coming, and we need your help as we go to the field and hold hearings on this matter. The motive and purpose behind the state involving itself in local school districts has to be, the focus of that has to always be the children. It has to be about rescuing children and helping enhance the children's educational opportunity. And so any other motives, become suspect. And so we have to address this. There absolutely cannot be any predatory loans made in a situation like that. It's a disservice to the children. And I think that obviously we have to look at that very carefully. There have to be guidelines around accountability with administrators, and also how to behave when you're in certain communities. You have to pay attention to community, teachers, students. You can't just run roughshod as if there isn't any accountability. Because what's left in the wake of that is too tragic for our children. You can't run roughshod over agreements. There has to be a respect of the ability to negotiate in good faith and bring everyone to the table. The state just has to look at the financial situations that are facing these districts in trouble. There are some important lessons that have been learned, and we have to go out our way to make sure that we shine light on those lessons, and that the beneficiary of what we find will be those school districts that are on the border of insolvency, and making sure that in fact we make education a real priority in the state. This is a battle that we have to engage in immediately, and I am very honored to be part of this committee, and I thank all of you that have been paying attention to this issue over the last 5 years. Our first hearing stands adjourned.